Supreme Creator gave us freedoms to create, to take action, to speak and express our thoughts and feelings, and freedom to move and travel about. While many believe themselves to be free, there is an underlying fear, like white noise, that we will be doing something wrong, be seen making errors, and either criticized, taxed, ticketed, penalized, or incarcerated for making them. We carry this tension with us like a whisper in our ear, dare not. It is the unspoken fear that affects us in our daily lives of subservience to legislated legalities, that bind us to obedience, that guilt us into taking certain actions we might not otherwise consider. Whether acknowledged or not, we have been conditioned. Such incriminations impose on our joy and lightness of being. Particularly noted are the regulations of the roads, streets, highways, and byways. Much of it is not so much for safety as for revenue. Who dares to leave someone at the side of the road while they watch their automobile being towed for some minor infraction? Who dares demand and drag someone out of their automobile for some minor infraction? Who dares take someone's child from a loving parent's arms, deeming a stranger more fit than the parent? Who dares to arrest and incarcerate someone, injuring them in the process? Who dares evict a senior from their only home for not paying taxes as rent? The answer to all these is a benevolent commercial enterprise that has become a heartless, malevolent governance following codes, legalities, policies, and quotas. These are the ones who follow the rules, heedless of people and their challenges, predicaments, intentions, or conditions. It is a system that has become increasingly stringent in assessing and curtailing our rights and right to live our lives to the best of our ability, freely. Beloved Creator gave us freedoms to create, to speak, and express our thoughts and feelings, and freedom to move and travel about. May God grace us with a renewed awareness among the populace that these impositions on our freedom must be ended, that we are once again granted freedom to move and to live our lives according to the laws of nature and of nature's God. Let it be so. So it is.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Palmetier, and I am with the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. I'm a deputy court clerk with the Assembly, and this is Kim Swager that we have here. She is also a deputy court clerk with the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. And we have a story that needs to be told. On August 26, 2024, Kim was stopped by Douglas County Sheriff's deputies for no license plate displayed on her car while traveling south on I-5. And Kim, I'm going to have you take it from there to explain exactly what happened to you when the officers pulled you over.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, on August 26th, I was traveling home from a long day. It was hot. I was in my car with my dog, and I was no more than 20 miles from home. And everything was going well. I was traveling within the speed limit. I was working with the traffic and not causing any problems at all. And I saw these lights flashing behind me, and I pulled over, and there was a deputy sheriff behind me wanting to speak with me. And I rolled up my windows on my car and just left the car door or window open a crack. And the deputy came up to my passenger side window and said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And of course I said no. And he said, "I noticed that you don't have license plates on your car." And I said, okay. And I don't remember the entire conversation, but I do remember that he wanted my driver's license and my registration paperwork and my insurance information. And I chose not to give it to him at that time because I was traveling, not driving. I was not in any commercial commerce. And I didn't feel that he had the right, I know that he didn't have the right to require me to have my papers and to
And
show my papers to him.
and did you ask him, did you actually tell him that?
I did.
Okay.
I told him that I was traveling and that I was not driving and I was not in commercial commerce and that I chose not to incriminate myself and to give him any information. I chose not to speak to him or answer any questions. We went on like that for a little while and he kept pushing and trying to get me to give him the information that he thought he had the right to require. And he even went around my car to the front driver's side and looked in the little window that's in the driver's side windshield to try to see if he could see
Then?
the VIN number. That's right. And I had covered that with tape so that no one could see it when I took the license plates off my car. There's a story behind that, but we won't get into it. So, I thought that was kind of funny. He didn't tell me that's what he was doing, but I certainly could tell what he was doing. And he got pretty frustrated. And I said, I need to speak to one of your supervisors. I need to speak to a sergeant or somebody like that about this because he wasn't letting me go. And he was demanding to see this paper, and I didn't want to give it to him. And basically, what he did at that point was threaten me that if I didn't give him the paper, then I would be put under arrest and that my car would be towed into impound, that my dog would be put in jail, and I would be put in jail because I didn't show him this paper, because I didn't have a license plate on the back of my car. So I got pretty angry at that point. And I was also feeling I wasn't as knowledgeable and as sure of myself then as I am now. And I really wanted to stand my ground, but there was a lot of pressure being put on me to comply, which made me madder.
So in the beginning, you had one deputy sheriff?
Yes.
And did any other deputy sheriffs or any other like state police or anyone else show up?
There ended up to be, by the time this all evolved, and there were 5 cop cars. They were all Douglas County Sheriff cars, and they were all lined up behind us. And I was pretty shocked because I hadn't turned around, but I did eventually have what was his name? I don't know his name actually. I know the first guy's name was Dawkins Jenkins, and he brought the sergeant, and I spoke to the sergeant, and I have his name, but I couldn't find it today. So I ended up talking to him, and he was much more understanding and reasonable. But I probably should finish talking about what all happened then, when I wouldn't open my door and I wouldn't provide those papers. Deputy Jenkins told me he was going to break my car window and drag me out of the car. So at that point, I thought, well, I better open the car because I don't want it to get damaged. I opened the car door and he dragged me out of the car and put me in handcuffs behind my back. And I'm like, an old lady. And I'm doing nothing. And I'm driving an old car that's dirty and dusty. And my dog is scared because she's only like 9 months old. And she doesn't know this guy. And she understands that I'm frustrated and upset. And she's just wanting to get home too. So I started yelling. I got injured by this guy. My elbow got wrenched, and my other arm, my forearm, got a scrape. It wasn't that bad. The wrenching of my elbow resolved within a couple of days. It wasn't a big deal, but I was in handcuffs for probably close to an hour, and I was put in the back of the cop car, and I told them at that time that they had no right to search my vehicle. They had no right to search my car, and to be careful not to let my dog out. And I couldn't record. I couldn't call anybody. My hands were behind my back. I think I may have still had my phone, or they had taken it away from me. I don't remember at that point.
So I know that you said that it didn't really matter that much that they wrenched your arm and scraped your other arm, but I do think that it's a big deal over a license plate. And
well, it was a big deal, and more because I was detained. I was arrested. I was put in handcuffs. I was molested and kidnapped. And my dog, I was in fear for my dog. I was in fear for my vehicle, my car. I was, I was scared and angry and frustrated and feeling like I had no power whatsoever for no reason. So I agree.
Correct. For not having the correct license plate on your car. Displayed.
Because now, I did have the license plate. I did have accurate, valid license plates under the seat in my car because I didn't want them displayed because I had been caught on video cameras, the traffic cams, and ended up with tickets before. And I was tired of that, and I couldn't afford it because the insurance would be too expensive for those things they used against me. So that's why I took the license plates off my car, but I left them in the car so that I could show them whenever somebody needed to look at them. I also had a valid ID that was in my name, that was perfectly valid, that hadn't expired in any way. I also had valid insurance that was not expired. And eventually I decided to show those things to them. But at the moment when I was being ordered to do so, I refused because I didn't believe they had the right to require those of me.
Correct. Why did you actually concede to show them to them?
Because they threatened me. Because they put me in handcuffs. Because I felt humiliated. Here I am on I-5 on the side of the road, 20 miles from my house, trying to get home at the end of a very long day. And they put me in a cop car. That's the first time in my life that I have been in a cop car in the back with my hands behind my back. I have done nothing wrong in my whole life to require that kind of restraint and detention. I am not a criminal, and I refuse to allow them to make me into one.
Thank you, Kim. So let's, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that part of this story?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Well, I'm going to move on, but I want you to know how brave you were through all of that. And I thank you for standing your ground and doing the following that we're going to discuss now.
Okay, let me just say one more thing I did think about. The sergeant guy that I ended up talking to, he kind of gave me some reasons why they do things like that. And I think their training is pretty poor. And I also think that in general, police are probably trying their best. I ended up being taken out of handcuffs and being allowed to show my bona fides, if you want to put it that way. And then they apologized, or the sergeant did, but they still gave me the ticket. I got a ticket for failure to show the display the
License plate. Mm-hmm.
That was called a violation. And I got a ticket for failure to display or present my ID. That was actually called a misdemeanor crime. And then I was required to buy these tickets to show up a month later and defend myself. So that's the end of that.
Okay. So on September 18th of 2024, you sent in a claim of cognizance from our court, the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, which is a common law court on Oregon, to the DA Westenberg on Douglas County with return receipt. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened?
Excuse me, that document with all of its proofs and with the time and money it cost me to make the copies and send it return receipt requested was entirely ignored. I got no response. I got no return receipt. It was as if it didn't exist. But I still did not appear on the 24th when I was required to appear, on the 24th of September. And I was told that if I didn't appear, I called anonymously and asked what would happen if I didn't appear. And they said that they would put out a bench warrant for me, which did not happen. But I still didn't appear. So I was kind of done getting threatened and harassed about those kinds of things.
So, what happened next after that? On April 25th, on April of 2025, you received a letter from Douglas County Justice Court on Canyonville requiring your appearance in May. Now, prior to that, was there anything else that happened in between for you? You didn't appear.
There was no communication at all from the Justice Court, from the DA, from anyone on Douglas County. And I traveled through there several other times, although I did put my license plate on the back of the car because that wouldn't be caught on the traffic cams. Traffic cams catch the front of the car, they don't catch the back. So I went ahead and left my license plate on as soon as I was able to do so. And didn't end up having any more trouble with any of the places that I traveled throughout Oregon until I got this letter in April of 2025, which would be more than 6 months later, like 8 months later. They sent me this letter saying, okay, we're gonna try this this matter, and you're required to appear in May.
And then did you send another claim of cognizance to anyone, or did you hand deliver one to the court?
I did. I hand delivered it. I took a friend of mine with me, and I video recorded it and put it in the record with ticket numbers that were related to the case so that the judge would have that before the 1st of May whenever they were looking at the case they would want me to enter a plea at that point. And I wanted to make sure the judge had gotten that piece of paper about the claim of cognizance, that I was not in her jurisdiction.
Okay. Okay, good. So we're gonna fast forward now to May and when your court date. Can you explain that?
Sure. So I came, I had people from my court, including you, come with me, and the plan that day was to, from the judge's perspective, the plan was to get a plea, find out whether or not I wanted to go to court, find out whether I wanted to say that I was guilty or not guilty or no contest, and find out that if I wanted to pursue it, if I was that I was not guilty, if I needed a lawyer, and that whether or not I could afford one would be determined by them. But our court had another plan, and the person that was hearing the case, her name, she's a justice of the peace. Her name was Michelle Briggs Mayfield. I wrote her a letter on April 30th and told her that just a little bit about the claim of cognizance, and that I had sent it to the DA back in September. And I wanted her to look at the claim of cognizance and really think about whether or not she believed that I was in her jurisdiction. So in May, when we met with her, that was May the 7th, I brought up many different items, and I did not enter a plea because she had questions about the claim of cognizance. She wanted to understand it better, and I was able to give her the time to do that. And I also spoke to her about the way her court runs, and things like whether or not there's recording and how they record things that are going on there, so that I had more information for later. But when we finalized the time together, she had me write, she wrote an agreement that she would take 30 days to explore the whole claim of cognizance and jurisdiction issue, and that she would write back to me and tell me what her decision was within 30 days. she and I both signed that. And that was kind of releasing me from any further issues until that was resolved. So do you want me to go on from there?
During that first time, you also discussed with her oath of office.
I don't think I did at that.
Not that
I think
time?
it was later.
The second time. Okay. I'm trying to keep this straight in my mind as well. So during that first time, so she still hadn't weighed in yet, though, even on the claim of cognizance and jurisdiction. Okay.
May 7th was the
Okay.
day that she decided that she would look into it further and that she would give herself 30 days to do so.
Okay.
So I made sure she had my claim of cognizance that I had delivered to her, and she said she did. But she also showed me that she had a copy of the one that
Mhm.
was given or sent to the DA back in September. That she had that in her file. And she said, I have 2 copies. And she actually let me see it. She asked me to come up to her bench and she let me see it. And so I was very pleased to know that the DA had received it after all, even though I hadn't heard for months and months and months from him at all. I've never met that man, and still to this day I've never met that man. So that's part of the story.
Okay. So now we're going to jump forward to July 9th of 2025.
Which day?
Now we're going to jump forward to July 9th.
Maybe we should talk just for a minute about the letter that she sent me
Okay.
saying that she looked into it.
Okay.
So she said that I can just read this to you. I appreciate your patience as I researched my authority regarding your request for a change of venue. I've spent considerable time reading your claim and looking into the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. I've attached a copy of ORS 51-050 that outlines the rules that dictate where a case can be heard. As an alleged misdemeanor offender, you have the absolute right to have your case transferred. However, the statute is clear that the matter must then be heard in the circuit court. And she said she sent me a copy. She asked me if I preferred to have this heard in Douglas County Circuit Court, that I would let her know, but otherwise that my case would be heard then the end of June. And if that date didn't work, that I should call and reschedule, which I did. So I rescheduled for July 9th. So now we're at July 9th.
Thank you. Okay. So on July 9th, again, our court, there was a court there from the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, met with the Justice of the Peace. And I'm going to let you go from there and explain what was said.
Okay. So she decided, as per her letter, that I was in her jurisdiction after all. And that I should enter a plea. And we talked about some other things. She talked about our assembly, and she gave me a little bit of a thumbnail of what she had researched. And she said she talked to her people, to which I assume that meant the DA.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't mention any other lawyers or like her legal counsel or anything like that, because she's not a judge. She's not a bar attorney. She doesn't have that background and felt like she needed some backup to rule the way she did.
So
And-
I'm going to intercede right now because I've had this discussion a couple of days ago with a woman that is running for governor of our state, that is a county commissioner on Marion County. And she said that she is part of the bar. And when I talked to Ron about that, Ron said, he goes, well, technically she's right. She's under the bar, but she's not a bar member. So she answers to the bar, which is the DA. I want to clarify all that because I had to like go through and figure out how that really was working.
Yeah.
And that is how it works. She is not a bar member. She answers to the bar though. So technically she's part of the bar.
Okay.
But not of the bar.
All right.
Okay. Please
So-
continue.
So that day, we talked about several different things, and she was curious about our group, and so I talked to her about some of the things that we are trying to accomplish, and trying to bring common law back to Oregon rather than maritime law and statute law and what we would consider de facto. And we talked about her oath of office at that point. And she gave me a copy of her oath of office. She was very proud to do so. And it was actually a pretty good oath of office. It didn't reference the proper constitution. But other than that, it was pretty good. And she had God in it and all of that. So it was one of the better ones I've seen on Oregon. So that was pretty cool. And we talked about recording, about the video cameras that are in her courtroom. And just as an aside, her courtroom is an open room. There is no bar to cross.
Hello?
There are no
Hello? Where you
metal
been,
detectors.
man?
There are no guards. It's just there's no recorder. It's just her and the people. And there's a couple of rows of chairs and a desk for the prosecutor and defender, I guess. So I was asking her about the recording, and she said that it doesn't record audio, that it only records video in case of an emergency, by which I thought she might mean something really crazy happening and somebody getting hurt. And they would at least have some evidence that that happened. And we talked about whether, I said, how do people know what happened in the courtroom then? And she said, well, it's on my word and on your word. It's like, wow, that's kind of different. So when I got to thinking about it, I was asking, how do I prove what I said? And so I asked her about that. And she said that you'd have to request it in writing, which eventually I ended up doing later on. So I wrote her a letter about that. But when we were talking about jurisdiction, I said, I still object. I said, on the claim of cognizance, it clearly says that if you disagree with the other court in the case, the other court says they have jurisdiction over me, and you disagree, then you're supposed to call them or write to them and prove why you take precedent, why you have jurisdiction instead of them. And you didn't do that. And so at the bottom of that paper, it says that if you don't do that within 30 days or 21 days or whatever it is, I think it's 7, 14, and 21 days, If you don't do that within that time frame, you've lost your ability to prove that. And it automatically goes back to the court that is claiming cognizance. So she said, well, how do we proceed then? And I said, well, I'd like to have this case dismissed because I don't believe you have jurisdiction, and I believe that we have proven that you don't have jurisdiction. And she said, well, you can write a motion to dismiss the case, and then we'll have to have the district attorney here, and he can present his side, and you can present your side, the reasons why, and then I'll judge which one's right. And I said, well, I said that I wanted it to be dismissed in the letter that I sent you. And she had a copy had the copy of the letter that I sent her. And it clearly stated at the bottom of that letter that I demanded for the motion to be dismissed. And she said, well, that's good enough. So that was my paper that I needed to give to her to start the ball rolling to dismiss the case. And that was how we ended that meeting.
Which was quite exciting, I have to add.
It was very
Yeah.
fun.
And she told you that she would call you by like Thursday or Friday. This was like on a Tuesday, and let you know the date that she scheduled for. It had to be on a Thursday because that's the day that the DA goes into Canyonville. And then the next time that we met was on July 3rd, 31st of 2025, at which time I was present, Ron was present, Phil and Keith was present to go to court with you. And I'm going to let you go forth from there.
Okay. So we were all there. We had another instrument with us, a jury verdict from our jury, saying that their court had erred and that they needed to correct it. That their court had denied me the status that I have called jura summa imperii, which basically means that I am not subject to any of them for any reason at any time. And their court is treating me as if I were one of their subjects, and I am not. So that document, that instrument was ready to present to them and demand that they treat me the way that I should be treated.
So did you enter it in to the court?
No, I did not, because the DA never showed up. We were all there, ready, loaded for bear. And he weaseled out. He didn't show up at all.
So when we all met and the 1 o'clock?
It was 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, when 1 o'clock came and the justice of the peace came in, she said, well, he's not here and I'm going to give him 15 minutes. And if he doesn't show, then I will rule.
Right.
So then explain.
And we also had a couple of deputies in the audience as well. One of them, I'm pretty sure, was the deputy Jenkins, who started this whole process. And it might be that the other one was the sergeant who was also involved. So clearly they were there to argue for why it should continue. And they had their papers in hand and they were ready to back up their DA. But their DA refused to appear, by which we believe, I certainly believe, that he acquiesced to all of our claims and didn't want to put validity to all of our work and assertions by trying to argue it and lose. And so he just did the cowardly thing and stayed away.
And then the justice of the peace ruled.
She certainly did. She dismissed the case and gave me a paper that very day to take with me saying that I was no longer subject to any of their fines or imprisonment or whatever, and that I was free to go. It was quite a victory.
It was quite a victory. It was like the first like true victory that the court has actually established. Little by little, we've pushed and pushed into at the state level, at the county level, into different city government parts, like on Washington County, the city of Beaverton, and the city of Multnomah County.
Yeah,
We pushed into the federal, and it's working. It is really, truly working. And again, Kim, I want to thank you so much for your bravery, because it took a lot of strength and fortitude and bravery to complete that, to complete going through that, the whole system that you had to go through, knowing that you could be picked up and arrested for not appearing, for not doing what they told you to do. And I really want to thank the Lord for what he did, because he gave us someone that was willing to listen. And and honestly, I believe that the DA would have lost had he come in, that she still would have ruled the same way. I truly believe that she still would have ruled the same way and dismissed it. So I want to thank you, Kim, for getting this down and recording it, and again for your bravery. And God bless you.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. It was definitely difficult throughout to try to learn this in such a way that I could defend it myself.
Exactly.
And it was very good for me to learn. And during that, there was one time in particular when I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to speak essentially as if I were standing in front of the jury giving my closing argument. And I spoke my innocence, and I spoke my reasons for doing what I was doing. And I spoke how angry I am at the de facto government that has put us all under its thumb, and that they have no right to treat us the way that they do. They treat us like criminals in waiting, like the Minority Report, like it's pre-crime. You're going to commit this crime, and so we have to watch and we have to restrain you before you commit a crime. How dare they? How dare they?
I
So
agree.
it was more outrage than courage, honestly. But it finally worked its way out, and they just folded. They just gave up. And hopefully there will be a lot more of that happening very soon.
Amen. I agree.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying. Then he jumps out of the car. And he's got both his hands up. And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, just shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.